Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to learn how software application architecture is built. So one of the biggest mistake beginners make, they learn fundamental and basics and everything related to business analysis, but they don't have clear understanding how a software application actually work. So in this module, if you are a beginner and you are new to business analysis, this is also this module. So understanding the software application architecture is really important. So let's see what are the important components you need to understand in a software application architecture. So, okay. So here, why do you need to understand? Because this will help you to communicate with developers clearly, and you can write requirements clearly and understand the requirements clearly and participate in discussions like a technical discussion. You can analyze the workflows like data flows, not only the business requirement, and also you can answer confidently in interview questions. Okay. Um, the main layers of an application, almost every software application working these three major layers, right? So as you know, front-end layer, business logic processing layer. The front-end layer means what we collect from customers, right? Users, information or data. After we collect this information, what we do with that data, right? We will make a business decision, right? And how the data is saved in database. So let's understand each layer using a banking check deposit example. Okay. So the front end layer we call as a user interface. This front end is screen user interact with. It's like your shop, like you go to a supermarket. What do you see in the display, right? That's the UI. So this layer collect information from users. So like example, login page, registration page, loan application page, check deposit page, right? This is the main entrance where customers can interact. So a check deposit front end example, imagine a customer want to deposit a check using a mobile banking application. So the screen may contain upload front image option, upload back image option, amount field, amount selection drop down, submit button. So this screen is called as UI interface. Okay. So the front end job is collect data, display information, and send this information to the backend system. Okay. So front end does not make any business decisions, right? This is important. The front end mainly focus on collect data and displays messages and send requests. So the front end usually does not process major business rule. Example, the front end does not decide whether check is um, expired or stale date, or that validation happens in the backend process. Okay, so I will show you one example um, here. So you see, this is one example of front end. Here, it's asking how much is the check amount. Okay, so let's say we are depositing $150 check, and which account we want to deposit this check. We are depositing to checking account. And here we need to upload the front and back image. So I don't have the back image, just a sample check. So I'll use the same image here and confirm and submit. So what is it saying? Deposit submitted successfully. Your check is now under review, right? So this is what exactly the front end looks like. So what is this doing? It hasn't made any decision yet. It's under review, right? So it's asking the data, okay, just let us know what you want to deposit, right? And which account you want to send this amount and how much is the check amount, right? Very simple example for the front end, okay? So now let's understand the business decision, business part. The front end mainly collects data and you see display message and send request. Okay. The front end usually does not process major business for a we discussed this one, right? So next, the business logic processing layer. So this is the brain of the application. After customer clicks submit button, the system process business rules like validate check data, evaluates condition, make decision, apply business rules, and determines outcome, right? So let's see what type of business rule this use case we can find out. When a teller manually checks a check, uh, the teller validate like a check date, is the signature is correct, amount, endorsement, pay name, alteration, this kind of thing, right? So in a digital application also, software perform the same validation automatically. Like example of business logic, it will check stale date. So let me show you what is a stale date here. This is not a sample check I just created. So here you see the check date is saying um, May 11th, 2026, right? So today is May 13th. So this check is valid. So usually checks are valid only 6 months. So let's say if you make it this one 2025, when you upload this check, so this check is uh, will not pass this rule, right? Because when you upload the check from the front end here, when you upload this check from the front end, the backend will validate this rule, right? The whether check date is in the valid period, which is within 160 days, 6 months, right? If the check date is older than allowed limit. So allowed limit, let's assume 6 months, which is 180 days. Our check is 2025. It's almost 365 days old. So this will fail. So the check has to reject, right? So the next business rule, see post-dated check. If check date is in the future date, right? Let's say usually banks allow 2 days. Let's say today is May 30th. This check is written for May 15th. Okay. So if customers depositing this check, system will allow, because even though it's post-dated, it's 2 days, it's okay. But let's say if the check date is 16 or let's say 17, 17 mean if today is 13, so this is a post-dated, right? It's the date is in future. Even the check is good, but it's still not a valid check because it's showing post-dated. So this business rule will reject the check, right? Missing signature. So here, if the signature is missing, then they reject the check, right? That's another business rule. So here you see there's a signature line. Usually the signature is present, but if there is no signature, system has to reject this one. So some rules, large deposit hold. If the check amount is greater than holding limit, then release the partial amount only. So let's say what is this hold limit? You are depositing a $1,000 check. So your hold limit with the bank, example, you are old customer, like your account is more than 3 years, and you have $500 only hold limit, right? But you are depositing $1,000 check. So what the bank will do when you deposit this check, they will only release $500. Rest $500 being hold until the check is clear. So when you deposit this check from the front end, here when you click this button, submit deposit, system will go in the background, it will check whether how much is the hold limit for this customer, right? Uh, so here, this one, right? So it will check how much is the check amount, how much is the hold limit, and it see how much it should be returned. So these are like, there are many rules, different use cases, like if it is a more money, if it's a mortgage, if it is a loan, a credit card, different flows, and if has a different business rules. So once the data is collected from the front end, when the command or executed like a send, submit, click now, or something like that from the front end. So the backend will activate and validate the business rules implemented. So these are hidden from the front end. Okay, so these we call as a business logics. I hope this understand. Okay, so let's move on. This is called a business logic. Business logic is system decision making, right? Well, remember our teller, right? Like example, when a customer go to a bank, if you hand over the check to the teller, teller do the same thing also. Teller check whether this check is in um, validity period or if the check is not stale or post-dated. Does the signature line match? Does the amount written in Word and the number is match, and see if the Michael line match and everything? Teller will evaluate, right? Same thing in the application also, we need to evaluate. Okay. Rule evaluation and workflow control. This is one of the most important concept for business analysts, right? So if you are working on these type of flows, right? Any flow, like you need to understand what is the business logic, right? Like you need to find out like what system has to do after collecting data. So you understand the front end, how the screen looks like, what information, what data we collect, what we do with that data, which is the business logic. The third one is the database layer. After business rules are completed, the final result is stored in the database, right? The customer information, transaction history, check detail, hold amount, notes, and audit history, right? So database example, after successful check, transaction is saved, customer balance is updated, hold amount is stored, clearing date stored, activity history. So all the information what we need to follow up, everything is stored in the database, right? So now let's combine all three layers together. So before we go here, I'll show you how this is stored in the database, right? So let's say this is the front end. So the customer name is asking John Summit. And let's say our amount is $170 check. I will upload the front end and the back of the check and click the save deposit record. So you see once it's saved, so this is a simulated database. This is not actual database. This is how something similar in the database it's going to record, right? So customer name, amount, front image, check image, status, and the created date. So this is the API request, JSON simulation request, how the data from front end to database data is sent, right? It's a post request. It's creating a new record in the database, right? So technically it's telling the customer name, amount, and the front image, and the back image, and the status here, right? What time is submitted. All right? Okay. Okay. So now let's understand the complete application flow step by step. Front-end layer, upload the check image we saw, enter the amount, click submit. Okay, so this is how exactly you need to capture your requirement, right? So if you are working in a full product or digital application, if you are working end-to-end, you need to understand what are the requirements for the front-end layer and what are the business logic we need to enhance or we need to implement new logic, right? So our case, these are the business logic process. Third one, the database layer. What information we need to store in the database? These three. Always ask the three questions. Let's say you are working on a front-end application and you are a BA only support the front-end application, right? So that case, you need to worry about this one, but make sure you ask this question. Do we need to validate or do we need to execute any validation for this data, right? Or do we need to send this information to the downstream? That case, API is involved and database involved, but make sure you ask, hey, what is the behavior? What are the requirements for the front end or UI? What is there any business logic enhanced or like a new business logic we need to implement? And ask how the data what data we need to store in the database. Okay, so you don't need to have any prior knowledge of the database or the business logic. You ask this question, and the technical folks can explain you. Even though you don't have a technical knowledge, still you can understand, right, what need to store in the database. So role of a business analyst in this flow. Business analysts help define like front-end requirement, back-end validation, business rules, system behavior, error message, and database requirement. So these are your job. So what are the requirement? What data we need to capture from front-end? What data, what information we need to validate, like a business logic. So these are the business rules. System behavior, what's the expected behavior, right? Example, uh, you see each of the case, right? What we need to do. We need to reject the check or bypass the check, or what we need to do, what the expected outcome you need to write that one too, right? So that's why here system behavior, error message. Let's say we don't have the whole limit, this rule. So for this customer, the given customer, a large check is coming 10,000. So system is trying to see what is the whole limit for this customer, right? So if the data is not available or system down or something, for this case, what we need to do. So that's what is explained here. You need to write error message, right? What we need to display those kind of exception scenarios, and also the database requirement. So the BA ensures all teams understand what the system should do, how it should behave, and what business rules must be applied. Okay. So we talk about a little bit about APIs, application programming interface. API stand for. API allows system to exchange information. The banking app may connect with fraud detection system, check verification system, customer profile system, notification service, right? Um, Here, one example of API, like when the front end send to the backend through API. So the API process check amount, check number, uploaded image, right? So it returns success message, rejection, whole limit and everything, right? So how the systems are getting this information, storing the data in the database, or like fetching the whole limit, everything through API. Okay. So why business analysts should understand this? Interviews often ask like how system work, right? Tell me this scenario, this use case, how application process the data, how validation happen, how workflows move between systems. So you may not code the application, but you must understand the application architecture, right? System flow, business logic, integration, and work behavior. Many beginners think front-end is the complete application, but real application include UI layer, backend logic, APIs, database, and integration and validation and the workflow process. Okay? So understanding this makes you stronger during the interviews. Okay, so let's take some questions related to this module. What are the three major layers of a software application, right? Most applications contain front-end layer where collect user input or display information, business logic layer, process validation and business rules, database layer, store process information permanent, right? Question number two, what is the role of the front-end layer? The front-end layer allows users to interact with the application. It collects user input through forms, buttons, drop-downs, and upload fields, then send the information to the backend for processing. What is the business logic? Business logic is the setup rules and validation processed by the system to make decision. Example, validation check data, checking signature, uh, detecting the stale date, and calculate the whole limit. What is the database important? Why database is important? The database stored important information permanently include customer details, transaction, deposit records, balance notes, and audit history. It help organization retrieve and manage data efficiently. So what is an API? An API allows applications and system to communicate with each other. API help transfer data between front-end systems. backend services, databases, and the third-party application. So example, a banking application may use API to connect with fraud detection system or customer profile system. Okay, so this module summary, you learn how software application work, front-end architecture, back-end processing, business logic evaluation, database storage, and API communication. Okay, so you may also learn how manual banking validation become digital workflows inside the software system. So this understanding is extremely important for business analyst interviews and real project. Okay, so I'll see you guys with the module 3, which is business rules and business logic. Let's understand more detail on this business rules. Okay, thanks everyone.